currently here in Bogota in Colombia, and my next trip actually starts in a couple of hours, but I decided that I had enough time to reach out to you guys on Facebook as well as on my YouTube channel and ask if you had any questions for me while I'm on this Contiki Odyssey. And I'm going to do my best to answer as many of those questions as I can right now. So in no particular order, first question is from Christina on my YouTube channel, and she asks, how do you keep your energy up for constant travel / excitement / partying? Do you think it will be challenging to readjust to regular life when you're finished your Odyssey? To answer the first part, I sleep a lot. I definitely think that's a big factor in maintaining my energy levels, is to make sure I get rest whenever I get the chance. That includes taking advantage of those travel days. So I used to dread them, but knowing that I've got hours of uninterrupted sleep available to me on a train, on a bus, on a plane, I find that's the best time to sleep if I can't sleep during the trip. So I use that opportunity to re-energize. And then the other option is pacing yourself. So I don't go out every single night that everyone else goes out. I try to go out as often as I can, but if there's a night where I'm not feeling it, I will go back to the room, I will sleep it off, and then the next morning I've got that energy to keep me going through. The other part is, do I think it'll be easy to readjust to regular life when I'm finished the trip? No, I don't think it's gonna be easy at all. I am dreading that. I don't even think about it. That's still several months away, but I don't think it's gonna be easy. I really enjoy life on the road, and going back to a normal life is not something that I wanna do. The next question is from Jay Fit, and he asks, or she asks, I believe it's Zahido, what are the most noticeable changes that you've seen in yourself as a result of your Odyssey travels? Would be interested to know how a trip like this can change a person. That's something that I haven't really had an opportunity to reflect on yet. I think, obviously, physically I've changed. I've gained about 40 pounds on this trip. I have since plateaued since I last weighed myself in Laos. I haven't really been going nearly as hard as I normally have, so I think I've been staying that same weight this entire time. I am hoping to return back home having lost weight on this last half of the trip, but we'll see if that's going to actually happen. So weight gain is certainly one of them. I do think one of the things I have noticed is I'm a lot quieter than I used to be. And I mean that in the sense that amongst other people, I'm a very social person by nature. And I think that because I'm constantly meeting new people all the time, I've got to a point now where I don't necessarily go out of my comfort zone or go out and actually speak to people like I used to. So I let people come to me, I let them ask me questions, and I'll answer them. But I've been a lot less proactive in making friends on these trips than I used to. And that might be the biggest change, is that I listen more, say less, and I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. It's just something that I have noticed. But certainly as the trip winds down, there'll be a lot of time for reflection to see really how I have changed on this trip. Another question here is from Daniel Mills. How do you shoot the panoramic shots of groups walking by? Do you have to run ahead to get them? I believe I know what you're referring to. So that's the shots of usually like an empty street with people walking through those streets, and it's usually a group. So in those cases, sometimes I run ahead. I want to run ahead of the group and get them before they pass me. But oftentimes it's actually at the end of a speech that our trip manager has given, or the local tour guide. So we'll be in a city and we'll kind of have stopped to get an orientation of where we are. And the trip manager will be talking about something in the city. And so the entire group is in a huddle listening to them. I'll notice that we're all gonna be going down this pathway in a moment here. So as I can kind of sense that the speech is winding down, I'll rush over to that spot, get my camera ready, and then as people walk by, I kind of usher them through. So oftentimes they think I'm taking a photo, especially when it's a newer group that I've just joined. But what I often have to say is, no, please, go ahead. Like, I actually want you to walk in front of the camera and want to get this action shot.
Oh yeah, good.
Good. Oh yeah, go ahead. No, I'm videoing everyone walking in. Yeah.
Shelby asks, what's something that you've liked / enjoyed about your travels, and what's something you would change if anything? I've liked everything. I've had a really good time doing this. I love being in hotel rooms all the time. I love the constant adventure. I love being forced out of my comfort zone to do things that I don't particularly enjoy, even if sometimes that's adrenaline-based activities where when I'm done, I'm like, I'm never doing that ever again. It's something that I would change if anything. Geez, that's a great question. I don't know if there is anything that I would change. I feel like There are times where it's rainy or things aren't as enjoyable as other days, but that's part of the experience. I often think that when I look back at my most memorable times on the trip, it's when things didn't go as intended. And I think I don't have any regrets of anything I've done, and I don't think I'd want to change anything because those are the memories that I've made on this trip. So thanks for the question. Desiree asks, have you met anyone special along the way? Tell us about it. So Desiree was on my Turkish trip. And yeah, I mean, you meet a lot of special people along these trips, and some of them are just brief encounters, and some of them are ones that extend past a period of time. Obviously, on the Turkish trip, there was a girl that Desiree knows that I had quite a lot of fun with, and that person and I have been in contact for quite a while, and she is now my girlfriend. So we started dating, I guess, in January of this year. So it's long distance. She's back home in Canada. But yeah, so you do meet some amazing people on these trips, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds for us. But yeah, it was something I wasn't expecting to happen on the trip. But yeah, as of January, we are now trying to make this work, even though I'm still traveling. So very cool, and thank you for the question, Des. Dope Smuggler says, I'm about to go on my first Contiki tour of Europe for 20 days, leaving in 4 weeks, and I'd love to get some advice on the amount of euros I think would be a good amount to be comfortable for the trip. So the first thing I would recommend is take a look at your package that you get from Contiki and find out what all the optionals are, because a lot of those optionals is where the bulk of your money is going to go. In terms of the actual money that you need, Europe can be quite expensive, especially because you're drinking a lot on the European trips. I would say maybe budget for around 50 euros a day. That would include your meals and your drinks. That does not include the optionals that you'd be doing. Like I said, I would look at that separately, but that would be my goal, around 50 euros a day. So for 20 days, that's about another $1,000. So another 1,000 euros rather. But that would be my guidance for you. Next question is from Anne. I'm curious to know what portion of the time on these trips is dedicated to partying versus doing touristy things. I'd love to go on a trip like this, but I don't drink, so I wonder if you could recommend finding a different type of tour for teetotalers like myself. So yeah, obviously with Contiki, they have a reputation for partying, but that actually depends on where you are. That's not always the case. So Europe, I would say partying is a big part of the culture, as well as in Asia. However, Egypt, that was not really an issue. Even Scandinavia and Russia, we maybe had 3 or 4 big nights where we actually drank. Certainly Israel and Jordan, there wasn't a lot of partying. Turkey, there was only a couple of nights that we partied. Sri Lanka was not really a thing. India, only a couple of nights. So yeah, it depends on where you are. Even here in the last trips that I've done in South America, Carnival is the exception because I think that's by design a very heavy drinking culture. But on the 22 days I spent in the Andean crossing, I don't think I went out once. Yeah, I don't think I went out once at all. So there are people on the trip who did go out, but I was definitely pacing myself, same within Ecuador. So there are opportunities to drink, but you can always say no. You don't have to go out and drink. That's not something that people are going to pressure you into. And a lot of people on these trips that I've encountered don't drink at all, so you wouldn't be alone at all. As for doing touristy stuff, there's going to be a ton of touristy stuff that you do, and the touristy stuff always outweighs the drinking. So in Europe, you'd be seeing touristy stuff during the day, going drinking at night. In a lot of the other locations, during the day you do all the touristy stuff, and then by the nighttime you're so exhausted, you just want to go to bed. The next question is from Anne-Marie, who is actually on that Scandinavian Russia trip with me. And she asks, why did you decide to go with Contiki specifically? Keep up the great work, Corey. I love your videos. Thanks, Anne-Marie. I decided to go with Contiki for a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason would be the age factor. So when I was originally planning my year around the world, I had an idea that I would travel from different company to different company. I would travel solo for a period of time. I would do cruises. I'd do all kinds of different ways of traveling and then review the different experiences for everyone. But the more I came down to looking at the different trips, I realized all the other trips that I looked at, I could do when I was 36 or older. I couldn't do that with Contiki's. and I had really enjoyed the past Contikis that I'd been on. So I actually ended up deciding to commit to one company the entire year, and that kind of made it almost easier to plan, because initially I had so many options. It was very difficult to narrow down what I wanted to do, but once I decided it was only going to be with Contiki, it made it a bit easier to plot the entire journey throughout the entire planet. I also thought, from a marketing point of view, knowing that I'd be on YouTube every week, having some kind of through story or something that people could relate to, such as a Contiki Odyssey, that made it a bit easier. I think a lot of travel vloggers, they travel and they have great content, but they'll often go from place to place to place with no real narrative. It's just, oh, I'm now in this city, oh, I'm now in this city. But I thought, if I want to separate myself from everyone else on the internet, I would need something that separates me in a lot of ways, and not just the content that I produce, but in the actual narrative that I'm providing. And so that was where the Odyssey came into play. And I think a lot of people that have done a Contiki in the past, or those who can't do Contikis for a variety of reasons, whether they're older than the 35-year-old target, or they have family and they can't get away, I thought having that built-in marathon would be appealing to people, and they could actually see that journey in a way that you can't with a traditional travel vlogger. Clint asks, did that roommate in Turkey who ruined your camera compensate you for the camera? That's a great question, and clearly you're a fan who has followed my videos and knows what happened in Turkey. As of right now, no, I have not received any compensation for that camera. I did file an insurance claim. They only covered $1,000 of the $6,000 that it was worth, so barely anything. Unfortunately, the person who damaged it is a fairly young guy, and I know that for him to pay back that camera would be extremely expensive, and it would probably be impossible for him to pay it back in one lump sum. We had talked about at the time potentially doing an installment plans, but to be 100% honest, I have not spoken to him since that trip. He hasn't reached out at all, so I don't think I'll ever receive any money from him, unfortunately. But yeah. The next question is from Brittany, and she asks, I know the Contiki motto is no regrets. At any point in your travels, have you questioned your decision to go on this journey? It's a great question. You'll be shocked to learn no. I have almost never questioned it. The closest I came was when I was in Tel Aviv at the end of my Israel and Jordan trip. This was shortly after the camera incident. I just spent a lot of money replacing the camera, and part of me is like, I just want to go home and stop spending money, because I could see the writing on the wall, and that I was going to be going home to nothing. And that was a realization that was a bit scary at first, but that's the closest I've come. I think I really enjoy this. If anything, I'm dreading going home, because I'm really loving the lifestyle that I have right now. So hashtag no regrets, definitely no regrets from me. Next question is from, let's flip one up here. Well, actually, it's from a lot of people. So I've got questions from Chris, Craig, Katie, Aaron, Ethan, and Brittany, and they all ask something along the lines of, how the heck do you afford this? I'm sure this will come up a lot. How do you afford it? Let's see here. How much money did you have to save up for that? Holy damn. First thing that comes to mind is, wow, how do you have that much money to do back Contikis like this? And then I know early on people had said, I just want to know how you afforded that. It sounds amazing. And that's what I'm waiting for. Haha, I want to know how much is sponsored. So the money question is obviously one that gets asked a lot, because this is a very expensive trip. So I think the big thing to get out of the way is that I am 35. So I'm not new in my career. I've had many years of experience. I've owned multiple houses in my life. I've since sold them. I made a little bit of money on that. So I've had a lot more years to save than most people have had, and that actually made a big difference. So I had a big pile of savings before I left, and that would be the number one reason that I was able to afford this trip, is 15 plus years of earning money that I didn't really spend. So I had a lot of money to do this trip. I'm actually going back to very little. So not necessarily something I'd recommend to people if they don't feel confident that they're going to find a job when they get back, and certainly that was a risk that I was willing to take. But having many years worth of savings has helped. Am I sponsored? I am not sponsored. So I do actually pay for all these trips. Contiki has given me some discounts, especially on my European trips. They actually gave me some pretty steep discounts. but I don't get nearly the amount of discounts you'd expect. I haven't had any trips given to me outright. I've paid for every trip, I've paid for every single room upgrade, and I've also paid for 99% of the optional activities that I do. There were a couple that were given to me as a thank you for doing this trip early on, but that was 7 or 8 months ago. So yeah, I've been paying out of pocket for everything, and my discounts range anywhere from 5% to the most I ever had was 40% off one of my trips. So yeah, I am paying for them, and it is very expensive to do this. I do have a commission code at the bottom, so if you are looking at booking a trip and you live in either Canada or the UK, if you use code COREY, which is COREY, that does help because I actually do make some commission on that. I haven't made a lot of money doing that, but I have made a little bit. And then some of you who've been following for a while, you used to see no ads on my videos, but as of January, YouTube has invited me to join their creators program, which allows me to actually make ad revenue. So I do make a little bit of money on the ad revenue. It's not a lot, probably $15 a month right now is what I'm making with these ads, but every little bit helps. So if you do want to book a trip and you live in Canada or the UK, or if you click on the link below, I believe that the link below will also get me some commission if you live in the United States. That helps a lot. So, because this is a very expensive trip.